These promises strong as a spell, I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you.
Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. A couple weeks ago I released this video where I talked about some of the reasons that ex-Mormons are sometimes bitter or angry about the Mormon church. I had asked my Instagram followers to send me the reasons why they maybe felt bitterness or anger towards the church, and you guys really followed through. I got so many answers on that question. Not only that, but you guys seemed to really like that video. I don't think I've ever had so many requests for a part 2 on any video. So of course I have to give the people what they want. This video is going to be a part 2 to that one, reading some more reasons from you guys about why ex-Mormons might feel negative feelings towards the church. I also decided to gather some of the comments that were left on the previous video to use in this part 2, so if you commented on it, you might be in this one. Once again, I'm hoping that this video will be cathartic for people who have left the church, maybe something that they can share with others if other people like Mormons or even people outside of the church have questions like, why are you so angry about this? Why do you have so many strong feelings about this? Well, this is why. This is why so many of us feel this way. I feel angry that it's created a wedge between me and my family. I feel angry about how it robs their time, money, and energy, leaving little for family, friends, and outside interests. I definitely understand the anger behind that one. I feel like it's really common within a high demand religion like Mormonism for the members to have a lot of jobs that go along with that religion, like being a Sunday school teacher or being a bishop, things like that. And even if they don't have specific jobs in the church, there are still a lot of things that you are expected to contribute to, like cleaning the building, or even recently the church has been having the members take care of the lawn outside of the church. There are potlucks to organize, there are parties to plan, there are children's and youth activities that need to be planned and coordinated and put together. And then on top of all of that, there are the individual tasks that you are expected to do. Reading the scriptures daily, listening to conference talks, studying the gospel, praying morning and night and before every meal, attending the temple regularly. When I was growing up, my dad had this goal one time where he attended the temple every single week for an entire year. There's just a lot that goes into it. So if you're being like very orthodox and very invested in this religion, you are going to spend a ton of time on it. And yeah, that time definitely cuts into the time that somebody who isn't Mormon would spend doing something else. When I was growing up in the church, I sometimes felt like it took away from family time because my parents were, very, very invested in it. And so they oftentimes had callings that on Sundays would take almost all day, and then the time they were home they were taking a nap because they were tired. I'm lucky that I don't have to deal with a lot of that at this point in my life, but I do think about how much time that most members of the church, most Orthodox members of the church are just pouring into it. And I think about my time in the church and how, with the information I have now, all of that feels like such a waste. And yeah, I feel bitter about that too. Realizing you spent 2 years on a mission spouting a narrative of Joseph Smith's first vision that didn't happen and peddled a book that was a creative, non-historical production. Now I'm glad for the people who didn't accept our message or stopped meeting with us on my mission. Yeah, it really makes you rethink all of your missionary moments for sure. I didn't go on a mission myself, but I did have a lot of missionary moments as a young person in the church because every member a missionary. And like the whole time I had no idea that I was telling people things that literally were not true. There's so many different versions of the first vision. The Book of Mormon has so many problems. The religion itself has so many problems, and most of us don't know about that until we end up leaving the church. But it's so frustrating looking back on that and being like, I was just out here lying to people without realizing it. I think my anger comes from the fallibility versus infallibility relationship. On one hand, I feel most members are okay in theory to admit that we have faults, but when it comes to actually pointing out those faults, they immediately rush to the defense of the church. It's frustrating because you can't have a good, nuanced discussion with them. It just devolves into, we are right, you're wrong, and you lack faith. Oh my gosh, I feel that one so hard. I have this one particular family member who is not even like active in church. They don't attend regularly, they don't follow all the rules like by a long shot, but sometimes like if they bring up a problem in the church, they're okay to like discuss a problem, but like if you start agreeing with them and being like, yeah, that is a problem, they immediately go on the defensive, and it's just like, which side are you on? You cannot say anything negative about the church without them putting their hackles up and going on the defensive like it's like you're going to battle or something. It's crazy. So even if there are parts of the church that they don't agree with, if somebody like me who has left the church brings that stuff up or starts criticizing it in any way, all of a sudden they are like full in for Jesus's army. We are back, we are fighting. It's just, Ugh. It's beyond frustrating. I totally feel you on that. What's frustrating for me is when I meet up with a Mormon in the wild, and as soon as they find out I'm an Exmo, I can see in their eyes that I've turned from a person into a project. They all want to be the one to bring the wayward RM back into the fold. Yeah, it can be really hard sometimes. And it's like frustrating because even if they're not the type of person that wants to like bring you back, they are going to have some kind of opinion on it. They're going to have feelings about it. And it's usually pretty evident. So, you know, in that case, like somebody who hears that you're not active and like immediately is like, oh, okay, like I'll do whatever it takes to bring them back. And then there's the other type of people who are just like, wow, that's really, really sad. Feel so bad for you. Feel so bad for your kids. That's very sad. We're gonna have an empty seat at our table in heaven. At least in my experience, there are hardly any Orthodox Mormons who will hear about somebody who has left the church and not immediately have feelings about that. I'm so angry for how much the church exacerbated my mental illness, and no one noticed because it just looked like I was being extra righteous because based on what the church taught, I was. I feel like I could talk about that a lot. I don't really feel like getting into it today, but I totally feel you on that one. If you have felt the same way, leave it in the comments if you're comfortable doing so, because yeah, that rings really true for me. How they say women are so important, but keep treating us as secondary citizens. It's all talk. It pisses me off. Oh my gosh, I hate that too. I don't know if you guys saw this video I posted. It was originally something that I made on TikTok, and then I also posted it on Instagram as a reel and on YouTube as a short. But literally all this video is quotes from leaders of the church, either apostles or prophets, with some very like feminist background music. And that video, I mean, I wouldn't say it's gone viral, but at least on YouTube, I've been getting a lot of comments on it, and a lot of Mormons are seeing that video, and they all of them will say something along the lines of, that's stuff that they said in the past and it doesn't matter. The church now teaches that we should respect women and treat them as equal partners. And it just drives me nuts because first of all, if those prophets and apostles are men called of God, why did they ever say those things in the first place? Did God just not care if women were treated poorly? Or did God change his mind about women at some point? And second of all, yeah, they might not say that kind of stuff out loud anymore, but that is still the quiet part that exists within the church at a deep, deep level. Women are not allowed to hold the priesthood. Women are not allowed to bless their own babies. Women are not allowed to even be a part of the circle of blessing their babies. I've heard the church pitching a fit about the mother holding the baby while the baby is blessed. Just holding it. Women are not allowed to have any real leadership within the church over any of the programs that are for both men and women or for men. Women are only allowed to be like the Relief Society president over other women or be a primary president over children, but they're not allowed to have any sort of leadership over men. Women are also vastly underrepresented in things like General Conference. Just look at this. But it's one of those things, again, where if a Mormon sees that video or a video like that come up, even if they have some reservations about the way women are treated, as soon as somebody like me is pointing it out, and I wasn't even doing anything mean, I literally just posted the quotes. They see that and they immediately go on the defensive. Our church treats everyone equally. No, they don't. They simply do not. I was angry and bitter because I lost my friends, family, and community, and then members didn't want their children to play with mine because they aren't Mormon. Doesn't that hurt? And the sad thing is too that like when I was a member of the church, I feel like I was that person that I wanted my kids to only hang out with other Mormon kids, and like it's hard and it's sad and it makes me feel upset that I ever was like that. For me, it was the expectations, primarily being raised assigned female at birth and being expected to be a wife and a mother. And when I figured out that I don't want either of those things, I'd be told, well, you don't have to get married. And then I'd go, then what's the other option? Crickets. But even beyond that, I remember talking to my young women's leader when I was probably about 13 or 14 about how my favorite author teaches creative writing at BYU. And she said something along the lines of, oh, maybe you can take his class when you go there. I've never wanted nor planned to go to BYU, and certainly never told her I did. She just assumed that that was where I was going to go to college because that's where the good Mormon kids go. My family in particular is very BYU obsessed. BYU football, everything, BYU merch, everything, all about the BYU. And so growing up, I felt a lot like that was where I was expected to go. Oh man, I'm really glad that I didn't do that. What I hate is how they tried to come for your kids. Oh my gosh, yeah. Literally, we stopped attending church for like a month, maybe not even a month. and they were dropping stuff off at my door for my nursery age children, saying that they missed seeing them at church. And I'm like, first of all, we live down the street. If you miss seeing us, you can come over. And second of all, the new like nursery leader person didn't even know my kids. She had not met them. So what do you mean you missed them? My kids at the time were really young, like 4, 3, and 2, and a baby. And also, if you guys are familiar with some of the stuff that happened with my in-laws, they were doing a lot of like trying to get my kids to be interested in the church and interested in Jesus behind our backs. Even though we explicitly said, please don't do that, they were talking about like, yeah, we need to make sure that the kids, like, we gotta save the kids, these poor kids, their parents don't believe in the church, but like, we will make sure that they still have the church in their lives, kind of a thing. It's beyond frustrating. I hate the condescending attitude of, I can't believe you left the only true church, but don't worry, you'll come crawling back one of these days. Yeah, no thanks. Yeah. No thanks. It's so funny because like for most Mormons, they really truly believe that this is the only true church. And if somebody doesn't rejoin the church in this life, like they certainly will in the next one. But then once you're on the other side of it, like it's so clear, like I will absolutely never go back. It's not true. Even if it was, there's so many problems with it that I wouldn't feel comfortable being a part of that organization because it's so unethical. Also kind of along that same thread, there's the people that, you know, say, oh, you'll come crawling back one of these days. And then those kind of people usually will also bring up something like, but aren't you worried about what's going to happen? Like you're going to be punished, like you're going to be judged, the judgment bar of God. Like, aren't you worried about your afterlife, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, no, like, do you ever worry about being punished by gods of other religions? Are you worried about Zeus or Odin? Like, no, of course I'm not. I don't believe it. Of course I'm not worried about it. This one is hard to explain, but when I was in it, I never fit in. I was always the odd girl out. I never did anything wrong. I just didn't fit in. Probably due to my ADHD and possible autism. They are seriously ableist. But still, it was my community, and everything I knew about making friends was within the church. I lived outside of the Utah bubble, so I could have easily had a community outside of the church, but they took that from me through fear and manipulation. I've heard that from other people as well, and like, for me personally, I feel like I fit pretty well within the church. I was able to make friends and I felt like I was, you know, it meshed well with the community. But my husband had the opposite experience. Like he has often told me, and he even told me when we were members, that he didn't feel like he really fit in the elders quorum. And I would always be like, well, you got to talk to people. Like if people aren't talking to you, you have to like reach out to them, and you know, you have to try to make friends, and like it can't be, you know, everybody else's responsibility to, you know, reach out to you. You have to kind of like try. And we had like several discussions about that, and I remember always being like, it's not that hard, like just make friends, just talk to people. But after leaving the church, like, and seeing more and more that like sometimes you don't fit into the church very well. You can't put a square peg in a round hole, and some people don't fit in well with the community, and it's through no fault of their own. It's just that like the church touts itself as very one size fits all, but it just is simply not. So for anybody who ever felt like you didn't fit in at church, like, it's not you. It really isn't you, and it's okay. For me, it's the absolute lie from the very beginning. The first vision was a lie, and so on, and the lies and misleading teachings to cover up for all the previous lies. Pay your tithing even if you can't feed your kids. What bothers me almost the very most is the fear-based teachings. Yes, to all of that. Sometimes I think about that, like this lie that Joseph Smith decided to tell that has just absolutely snowballed and continued and gotten worse. I hate that the church teaches to pay your tithing even if you can't afford to buy food or pay for your bills. If any Mormons want to come after me for saying that the church teaches that you need to pay your tithing before you feed your family or pay your bills, look it up. It's all over the church's website. Many prophets and apostles have talked about it. It's super, super prevalent. You don't need me to Google it for you. Google is free. You can look it up. And yes, a lot of it is fear-based teachings. I did this video where I talk about all of the different things that the church uses as like a fear-based teaching of something to keep people in the church through terrifying them into believing that they will lose their family forever in the afterlife unless they do what they're told. Check that one out. Hardest part for me is that my parents and siblings are so absolutely certain that I am wrong, and they feel it's okay to say church promoting things to me, but I wouldn't dare say anything unfavorable about the church to them, as that would get a bad reaction. So true. And it's like an unwritten rule. Like we all know, like you can't bring stuff up to your Mormon or possible Mormon family members out of fear of them having a bad reaction. But they are allowed to talk about the church whenever they want, bring up all the good things, all the stuff that's happening at church, bring up church doctrine, church whatever, but you cannot do it. You can't. And this is so ingrained even for me that like I have family members that seem to not be, maybe not even part of the church anymore, but even if they are part of the church, like extremely nuanced or, you know, following the beat of their own drum and not following church rules. And I can't say anything. I cannot bring myself to ask because I know that they know what I do online, and I don't want to be that person who creates like an awkward conversation by being like, hey, like, did you leave the church? Or like, I noticed that you drink coffee, like, or you have tattoos, or like whatever. Are you like, what's the relationship with the church like? Because you know that for one thing, they could get defensive. If they're still a member of the church, they could immediately put a wall up, or it could feel really uncomfortable because it's really hard for them. It's really hard for most Mormons to hear anything negative about the church, even if it's not a negative statement, even if you're just asking a question, like they immediately Again, there are so many more that you guys shared and they are so good, but I'm gonna have to stop right here for today. So if you guys really like this again and you want me to do a part 3, I absolutely can. Leave a comment in the comment section telling me what sorts of things make you feel bitter or negative towards the church so that we can put it out there so more people can understand. And remember that leaving a comment and watching the video all the way to the end are so super helpful for me, and I appreciate that so much. Huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. Extra special thank you to Craig Call, Doug Davis, and Tans for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. You guys keep this whole show running. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Patreon is probably the best way, but there's lots of other things that you can do as well. I also have links to all my other social media if you want to see a greater variety of content, and I always appreciate a like and a follow on those different things. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Strong as a spell, I'll never tell.
Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been a long time, a year before, and I'm missing you.